going to call to order the Port of Siuslaw Commission meeting for April 20th at 7 p.m. Our first item is what's called order. We did that. Second item, public comments. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker and a total time of 15 minutes. No speakers. Too bad. But we will continue on. We are going to have a presentation by engineer Jack Aiken regarding the repair of the shore banks.
Yeah, let me just introduce Jack real quick. I met Jack when I was at Bandon. He performs a lot of the engineering for the South Coast Sports Coalition. That's where I got to know him. And I retained him to do the erosion control on the sea rows behind the shore banks behind the sea row. He's also going to help out with dredging projects, and so he's going to make a presentation now on the work that he's done up to this point on those two issues.
Evening. Good to meet you guys and see you guys. My name is Jack Aiken. Steve has said. Steve asked me to look at the embankment erosion that's occurred along with some 800 feet of area that we kind of identified as the problem area along your just outside of the campgrounds, if you know what I'm talking about. These days I've gotten so spoiled with screens, I want to put my hands up there and just go like this, to make it bigger. But there is a plus sign up there. Is that it? I can't see it that well because of the angle. Let me identify it here first. Okay, there it is. This is, as you recognize, a drawing of the. This is a scaled and surveyed drawing. This area here, this dredge area, has been surveyed, MLLW, mean low slow water, and been tied into a survey that was run all along this curved area here, along this embankment. This embankment was surveyed for the purposes of design engineering for, my favorite, but one of several possible alternatives to solidifying, strengthening this embankment against future flood events. What you had here was particularly pronounced this year because you have the king tides, along ebb tide flow. In addition to accelerated storm events, unusual storm events, you put all three together and you got a lot of energy hitting that slope. So we wanted to look at ideas and develop a proposal. FEMA has offered some money, and we want to present them with a proposal that gives us a chance to reinforce this so that you don't have this problem happening again. We want to utilize a combination, hopefully, of mitigation, 406 mitigation, and regular FEMA restoration to original state kind of monies. And our idea here is that we have an opportunity. If you will, I'll go ahead and see if I can't, first of all, enlarge this baby a little bit. And then I'm going to move it down so we can see a little bit of the design I'm trying to implement on this. I think I'm also going to make it easier for you to see by giving you guys exactly what you see there. You can kind of share it if you want it. If you don't want it, if it's not useful, just push it out of your way. But it's got some of the photos you're looking at, plus it's got a lot more detail, and it's really what that is up there. Here again is a little bit of the plan view of the basin with the survey points, elevations. Here you have an idea. These are called geotubes. It's becoming more and more popular. Geotubes are interesting because sand, which has a lot of compressive strength, has no tensile strength. So you can't keep it in, if you will. But there are different vehicles for keeping sand in and creating ourselves some good basis. That with riprap, live staking, some bioengineering, some placement of some tree stumps with the clumps and the root wads facing seaward and slightly upstream, we can create a nice little bioengineered habitat, as well as a very, very strong revetment repair. The idea here is, if you see this initial design, you got to do this in order to be able to assess costs. So, this we have about 5,900 cubic yards of structural earth fill needed for this. About 1,800 cubic yards of class 2000 riprap, which is about what we should use here, and some geotube anchor tube fill of 2,600 cubic yards. Now the question, and in terms of the synergy of the port's needs, I've been doing enough of this now with all these various ports where I'm trying to integrate various objectives and see how they might work. How are we going to fill geotubes if we did specify geotubes? The geotubes, by the way, what did I do with it? Geotubes kind of look like this, if you will. All right, there's some applications of geotube, and you have these pictures, or some of them. You see on this upper left-hand corner, you see there's a pipe that's fed into this top of this geotube, and it was maybe between 45 and 60 psi. You can go more. It's difficult if you go less. You can go ahead and inflate these things with slurry, say from a dredging project, and it will dewater, as you see in this lower middle photo. There are a lot of aspects and advantages to this type of an approach. As far as scouring, you have scour prevention with the anchors, as you see on the geotube in the upper left-hand corner. You can it's eased for overburden. When you have overburden, you can use live staking for solidification. And there are all kinds of uses around the world. Here you see on the lower right-hand corner, you see riprap with some geotech protecting material, and then up right against the geotube. This will become, first of all, it'll be filled, it'll be watery, it'll dewater, it'll inflate to somewhat a shape a little bit like this, maybe a little flatter than this, and then it'll be fairly solid material. And it'll provide a good basis for building on, over, and next to, and to produce a nice bioengineered product. Now, what's good about this, why the geotube? Why not just some other process, for example, just regular fill? You could use regular structural fill, but the geotube allows us to do one other thing, that is utilize sediment that we would obtain from the port. That's valuable because the mobilization of a dredge is probably, to mobilize a dredge here, the cost I would say would be at least $15,000 to get it here and to get it and to take it. So about $30,000 plus your mobilization of pipe, your welding of pipe, all the things that you need to do when you want a dredge would be part of the FEMA program, and therefore you'd be able to obtain some of the major costs for dredging could be actually incorporated into the revetment repair that you want to do over there to protect your campground. So that's why I thought of it. That's why I thought it might be an interesting thing to dialogue with you about, and let you ask me some questions and get some down to some details. I have good technical knowledge about really every aspect of this type of a project, and I'm happy to entertain any questions right off the bat, if anybody has any.
I have a question right here. Are these geotubes?
Yes, you see geotubes, and you can put them single layer like I'm proposing here. Some people like to put double layers, but frankly, I don't think we need a lot of it here. The real reason why I want to see geotubes in here is because I want to incorporate the dredging project into it if possible. It's going to save a lot of money, so that's why I thought of talking to you about that.
Well, these look in disrepair, the ones on the lower left. Is that the case? Or is if you don't rip wrap?
No, you're
over
seeing
it?
geotech material on top of them.
Okay, is that what you're seeing?
Yeah,
It's
and
not-
they're going to put riprap on top of this.
That's a project.
This is a
haven't
project,
finished.
it's not completed.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
know if that's.
By the way, that's a good question. There's somebody on the coast here that went ahead and used sandbags incorrectly, and it completely fell apart. You know, that's not what. You know, geotubes can work if they have enough mass, and they're adequately designed and integrated with other components in order to face the energy that they're supposed to be facing. In this case, you have a certain amount of energy. We want to design for the worst case scenario. Mitigation comes in. With FEMA, mitigation means not like what it means like when you're doing something out there and you have to mitigate for Corps of Engineers, and it's not like mitigating for wetlands. Mitigation for FEMA means make it as good as it was. That's a normal project. But to make it better than it was, improve it, that's called mitigation. And FEMA has found that they have about an 8-to-1 advantage by doing that. If they do something in an improved way, they save 8-to-1 because future events don't cost them as much money because you did it right this time. If you get what I mean? Am I doing any kind of a decent job explaining that? So mitigation is a very unique, specific word when it comes to FEMA. It's talking about making something better than it was before its present condition.
Where these are put in place, what is the history and going through storms? That would be the once in a quarter century, or that
We have a
kind
lot of
thing.
history. New standards have been developed. As far as length of time, I mean, the material hasn't been this kind of material, woven plastics like this is not really, it's new. But it's not so new as, last year. There's thousands of projects now that have been completed with geotubes. The idea of utilizing woven material like this it's got some real pluses. It brings some better things to the table. Where I see it go wrong is where, you just don't have any serious engineering, like the one we have right here in Florence. It just wasn't done right. And in fact, there was no engineer involved in that. And my opinion is engineers should be involved in just about everything. Because,
And this material would resist the salt, the sun,
yeah, it won't be exposed to the sun. You can be, as any plastic, UV would attack it. But this is not going to be exposed to the sun. Expected to last, I've heard numbers around 100 years or more. But remember, the main thing I'm trying to do is buy time. Once I have this thing in there, I'm expecting biological events, to occur that are going to solidify this. I'm expecting growth. I'm expecting root wads. I'm expecting serious sedimentation accumulation. This is I need to have some rigid way to hold the sand in place, and I'd like to use the sand that we have, and I'd like to get grant money to mobilize that dredge and equipment. So that's why I think it might be valuable. At least it's worth analysis. And I'm quickly developing some numbers. It's not that complicated to do to develop a cost estimate, and we're going to have to do that for FEMA anyway. And which we're going to probably the next week or so we'll have pretty good numbers. I got a fairly good, I'd say medium confidence. Your low and medium confidence means your estimate's high, and as you get more confident, you get more down to actual costs.
You talked about, I deal with geotextiles and I'm confused sometimes between woven and non-woven, but I'm pretty certain where the riprap is, that's a different type of textile than what the tube's made out of.
That's right. You've got to have something to protect the woven material.
Yes.
It's good. That's a good point. Good observation. And riprap. It's rock. So
You would put a gravel base on the.
there'll be a gravel base on the floor. Okay. The gravel, and you don't need. One of the main things you worry about whenever you do riprap is scouring. In other words, when you have movement of material, it wants to gouge out and undermine what you've built. So the way to deal with that is you either put some sort of an apron up here. You can dig down, but a lot of times it's not practicable to be digging down in the water. okay, to create a scour region. Okay, so this kind of an idea is pretty cool. This is connected. Where is that thing? Your anchor tube, what they call an anchor tube, what I call anti-scour. Okay, what did I do? Thank you. And here's your geotube here. And you see how it's connected
Right.
with material, and then it's got this. You don't need it
Basically,
on
you're
this
creating
side.
a hard pan, there's all you're creating with that.
You create a hard pan, but you also what this will do is as this is scoured out by energy, it'll actually fall into that scour, and it'll prevent undermining of the rest of the structure. That's pretty good idea.
Have we bored anywhere out there to see if there's any hard pan?
No, it's sand. I'm not really looking for hard pan.
Okay,
I
there's nothing evident.
don't think so. If you find hard pan, you're looking for liquefaction resistance and things like that. It's not going to be too useful. You're not really going to do anything with it. I don't think it's going to be anybody's going to recommend. Well, I'm not going to recommend finding hard pan to build on. Those are all good questions, though, because you got to consider everything on this kind of project.
Well, I know down the river they have hard pan,
Yeah, yeah.
Shelter Cove,
Yeah.
the other subdivisions.
Exactly. I'm not going to recommend it.
I would tend to agree with you, though. I don't think there's any there, but
Subsurface excavation is not easy to permit in this area, right up in here, and I'm not sure. Since we're trying to really reinforce an existing embankment that's going to be constantly exposed to serious energy, I think we're going to have to try to stay as natural as we can and not try to. I'm not going to create too hard of a resistance.
will this construction be subject to in-water work?
I've done landslide repair in what's called dry, which generally means you don't have to wait for in-water work period. If we do this by bringing dredging material in, yes, we'll have to do in-water. I think your existing permit, I'm not sure, but I think it says clamshell. I think somebody created the permit to do clamshell. And clamshell is not a very practicable way to dredge here. And if you put it into a scow, you have to have a large barge out there, because you don't have access off the shore. And a large barge means you have to put it into a scow. Then once you get into the scow, you have to put it somewhere. Where are you going to get it up? How are you going to get it upland?
You're going to pump it one way or another.
It's not going to work very well. So assuming that we're going to utilize the dredged material to fill this, then you would have to wait for in-water. However, in order to do a lot of other things, all you need to do is get a permit to do it dry, which means if your high tide would be in the work, then you need to do it during low tide. If you're above the tide, you can get a permit to do that, and it's easier to get that in non-in-water work period times.
Do you have a cost estimate for the whole project?
Well, I can tell you that it'll cost about $30 a cubic yard to move your material that you have up there. If you're going to use that material for putting on top. And the dredging itself, I would put it, I've been successfully dredging now with utilizing the coalition's equipment, which your port was smart enough to get involved in. And so instead of having to pay $20 or $30 a cubic yard, you're going to pay $3 or $4. So the beauty of that is that we can get an estimate from recent work that we've done. I say if you have 30,000 cubic yards, if we're going to include the entire dredging project as part of this, and FEMA will only pay for the part that's used for the revetment, but obviously it's a $120,000 project. However, a large part of contribution of that cost is the mob and demob. You got to bring the dredge in with a crane, you got to pull it out with a crane, you got to weld all that pipe, you got to transfer all the pipe up here. Quite a bit of prep work before and after, and that could be part of this project. That's my little idea.
There's no matching money with FEMA.
Uh,
It's just,
it's 75%. Now
so we have come 25%.
you have to come up with 25, but there are some ideas out there that in terms of some erosion, bank erosion, well, they'll pay 100%. We're working on that now. But as far as matching also, there's some other ideas. They're a little complicated probably for this meeting, but we can discuss it possibly, ideas that we might be able to help with the matching, get the matching, some of it. But I'm not trying to circumvent your question. I'm easily diverted. It's $30 a yard. If you're talking about structural earth fill of 6,000 yards at $30, that's what, 180,000? Okay. So class riprap, usually I think you're going to pay, when you talk about trucking it in, I think you're going to be pretty close to $40 a yard for that. Maybe somebody can do better than that, but 2,000 riprap to bring it in, you got to bring it in. I said a yard, I meant a ton. The last bid I got was from, actually that was Tidewater. I also got one from, what's your local guys here? I use them all the time for some reason. Their names just slipped out of my brain. Knife River. Where we get
Local.
local. So they're not local, Knife River.
No, out of Eugene.
They're out of Eugene. Well, their office is, but they have these other. I don't know. I don't know what Knife River does. Anybody who listen, FEMA requires you to get a bid for just about any large amount of material. So, you probably use class 2,000, which means that the rock, your larger rock is 2,000, then 20% of it is 2,000 pounds. The median size of a 2,000 class is 700 pounds. You got 14 to 2,000, there's 20%, and then down to 700 is another 40% of it, is that whatever it is, all the way down to 50 pounds, a little bit of those.
So 3 by 3 by 3, 1 yard rock, pretty much.
Well, the 2,000 is, well, that might be that. You think it's that big? 3 by 3?
Well, rock's 2,700.
So, yeah,
Yard.
rock is 106. The rock they want you to use is 165 pounds a cubic foot, right? But anyway, whatever it is, you're supposed to place. You don't dump the rock. You place them on this kind of project. You place the rocks so that they kind of key into each other. They got to be angular. They got to have good weight and placed in well. Anyway, in terms of cost, I wouldn't be surprised if you hit $400,000 in this project. And but I wouldn't be including the entire dredging project as well.
Could we use part of that dredging as our in-kind, 25%?
Interesting concept. You got the mobilization itself is part of this project, so you wouldn't be paying for that.
I mean, I think FEMA would allow some.
Have you
Yeah.
talked with FEMA?
Yes, I have, but I haven't really. I've submitted peripherally some ideas, but I wasn't going to talk to them on behalf of the port until I had the port's authorization on being able to negotiate for the port and discuss all these various issues. Obviously, my motive is to try to get as much as I can paid for with the FEMA project. That's the whole idea of this, frankly, of the geotube. The geotube allows me to get tensile strength added to existing materials that normally are not suitable for building, because they don't have that ability to. They can hold the world, on top of them as long as they don't spread, as long as they have something holding them in.
Is this erosion a result of a major disaster event?
Yes. December storms.
Just one event?
Well, I mean,
Or is it
as far as I know,
continually erosion over the past 10 years?
it could be. There could be some erosion problems over the last 10 years, but I haven't been here. I looked at the area photos.
Well, I was just thinking about FEMA and how they look at that.
Yeah,
A singular event is one thing, but an erosion over a period of time, and the last one just kind of happened to be the final straw.
if in the worst case scenario, where we would not get FEMA money, it would be that this issue is not really caused by the major storm in December. It was caused by just a whole series of events. Okay, but to me it looks like, because I look at the aerial photos, and I don't see enough information from the aerial photos because they were taken at different tides. So I can't see whether or not I'm looking at high tide, low tide, and exactly, how much of it is over a long-term period of time and how much of it was over a short period of time. I will tell you that I consult 7 ports, okay, and 4 of those ports have major erosion problems directly due to the December storms. I can't tell you for sure about this one because I can't tell it from the historical aerials, but it looks to me like, if I'm going to go by the preponderance of evidence, and seems like FEMA seems to be convinced of the same thing, since they have actually reached out to these ports as a result of this December storms. So that's all I have to go by when it comes to Sayusla, because the only reason I ever came out here was to, take my kids to a local hotel and jump in the pool and stuff like that. So.
Well, I'm always a little bit skeptical of FEMA and how they're quick to jump in, but the hurdles to jump over to actually get the result is, I've just wondered how far you've been with them.
I've gotten a very quick response from them. I have a good relationship with them. I always know exactly what they want. They want me to identify the project. Please, let us know what is the project, and then the paperwork just falls into place. It's easy to fill out the paperwork once you have the project identified. So then they will, I've never had them argue with my engineering because they don't tend to argue with engineers.
How quick do they respond?
Very fast. We'll have an answer, not just an answer, we'll have them concurring with us within weeks. And you'll see cash flow, depending on which program we decide to go on, whether we decide to go upfront payment or go through the draw process, it will go over to Oregon Emergency Management. When it's approved, we get a PW, project worksheet. It'll go over to Oregon Emergency Management, and then they will be the ones that disperse. And my experience with them, I've been in a number of them, they will get back much less than 30 days. They'll pay for any invoice you send them or any requisition for funding. So it's pretty easy, good process once you get started. The key is to get concurrence, identify the project, get them to agree to it, and then you're done.
So we need to know within 60 days or less than 60 days for our budget process.
Well, they need to know within 60 days too.
Yeah,
So-
but we need to know whether or not they're gonna participate.
Right. I think we can know pretty soon once somebody pulls the trigger and tells me to go.
So, Jack, what do we need to do next?
Well, I think that between however you guys run it, because you're the decision makers, I would say I can correspond with Steve and
Yes.
on your behalf and all you guys' consensus, and tell them what to do. Maybe I'll get administrative help. If I get administrative help, then I don't have to send it to my people and cost less money.
Okay.
But either way, we'll have this FEMA thing wrapped up in a week or two.
Okay, so, yeah, put it together and then Steve will inform us and we'll put our heads together and get it approved or disapproved.
Very good.
If
Ron-
there's 2 sides to every story, go ahead.
I had a question for Jack. How do you tie this into our existing retaining wall? Is it possible to?
Now we tell you the retaining wall. Are you referring to the pile driven?
Yes.
Well, I mean, look, you got tides coming two ways, right? So you have to tie it in structurally on either end.
Right.
Right.
If we're shooting for the moon, can we ask for that too?
The entire, just replacement of that whole thing, or just tying into it?
No, replacement of the whole thing. That's what I meant. How are you gonna, I know there'll have to be a transitionary regardless, but what?
That might be a chasm of credulity that I'm not sure I can jump.
Okay.
I can, but I don't want to play with it too much. I want to make sure that they give us. I know I've seen the the degradation of what you've got out there. I know it, but and I was talking with Steve about that. We're talking about much less expensive ways to do that than what you've been proposing in the past. But I'm not sure I can get this on
Okay.
on FEMA. But I will ask if you want. Once I get the rest of it approved, I'll ask. I'll ask.
Okay. Thank you very much,
You bet.
Jack.
Of course, glad to do it.
Next on the agenda, a presentation by Olmsted and Sweeney regarding the replacement of the boardwalk fire suppression system. Looks like Jason and Fran.
Steve Swinney.
They have that one chart in their packet.
Okay. So the port facility itself, we've got two dry fire systems. One for the wharf itself, infrastructure for ICM, MOS, and the center part of the wharf. And a second one that's for the boardwalk.
That's the boardwalk.
The boardwalk itself. Yeah, and you guys got copies of the boardwalk one. I was unable to kind of find something I can downsize for the wharf one itself. But the boardwalk was installed in 2000, and the wharf system was installed in 87. And over the years, the system has taken some tolls and many repairs. And I'm just coming to the board tonight just to kind of give an overall of, in the last 2 years, we've had 10 emergency repairs. This is when the system is failing due to rust fittings, bolts, parts of the system that give out. And in the last 2 years, we've had 10 repairs, and we've also spent in the last 2 years $8,450 just in repair work. The system is kind of at the end of its life cycle. The life expectancy of an average system is between 20 to 25 years. With a galvanized system is which we have. And then I've invited Steve Sweeney from the company out of Eugene. He does most of our work and our annual inspections to kind of talk with you guys about the system.
Okay.
But in the next fiscal budget, I'd like to see some money be put aside for replacement of the system. We did go out for system replacement cost 2 years ago, and that never really went anywhere, and we are applying for a FEMA grant to replace both systems in the next 2 months. That will be due and submitted. But I'm going to just kind of turn it over to Steve, and if you guys have questions with him, he's more oriented to answer those.
Hi, guys. Basically, what Jason hit it on the head is you've got two different systems. The boardwalk system was installed in what's called thin wall black pipe, which is not the best product for the situation. So the life expectancy of a system like that in these conditions is 12 to 15 to 17 years when it's starts going, and it's like Jason said, we've had about a dozen repairs. It's not going to go away. It's going to keep popping holes in it, and there's no way to plan when that's going to happen. And then the main system underneath Moe's and the rest of the wharf there is an old galvanized system. It's Schedule 40 pipe, galvanized pipe, which is what should have been put in on the boardwalk, and then you would have got 30 years out of that versus 15. Either one of them that you go with, the galvanized Schedule 40 is the way to go. You can go stainless steel, which will outlast probably your structure. You'll probably have more problems with wooden structure before you'd have a problem with the stainless steel system properly installed with stainless steel anchors and what have you. But the cost, something like that, is expensive for stainless piping and fittings. So at the point we're going at now, it's just when Jason calls and we have a rotten pipe, we have to come down and slap a replacement piece in and hook things back up and move forward. So
So are you proposing to repipe the whole thing?
Well, the only, if you keep going like you're going, you're gonna spend more money
Okay,
fixing it as you go versus putting a crew on it, getting a section of it done. You don't, I'm not saying that, it's gonna last a few more years, a couple, 3 more years, but you're gonna have some problems. But if you start at one end of it and replace a third of it, and then the next year you could do the same. I mean, if you can budget enough money to do the whole project, that's the way to do it. Things that happen is steel prices, we never know when they're gonna go up. I mean, our suppliers just sent us something the other day that piping prices are going up 6%. Just boom. We have no control of that. We can tell you what labor's gonna be, but material, as far as galvanized piping, stainless steel piping, whichever one that we went with, there's no way to tell you except for guessing how much it's going to go up. I think a couple of years ago we were estimated about $55,000 to take all the piping out of the boardwalk and put all new galvanized piping in. That's probably risen 10,000 by now. It's probably went up 10 to 12,000. So if a couple more years, it's going to go up some more. It's just they're not going to come back down on prices. So the longer we wait, the more money it's going to cost to make the repairs.
so the stuff under the wharf is okay now?
Well, the stuff underneath the boardwalk it's holding together right now.
Yeah.
But we've made a lot of repairs on it. We've made almost a dozen repairs in the last couple of years.
Okay.
So that's not going to go away. I mean, I'm foreseeing that we're probably down here, half dozen times or a dozen times in the next year and a half or 2 years. Just, I mean, you can't predict that. You got two things going for you. You got corrosion on the inside plus corrosion on the outside. And there's no way to tell. We've had the pipe apart and looked in it, and it's pretty thin, but you just can't tell how fast that's going to, finish rotting out. But the only way to solve the problem is to replace the pipe.
What is our requirement for the boardwalk? Are we required by the city to have that?
Yes, yes,
Or by our insurance company?
by the city,
Okay.
because of occupancy. Yeah, it wouldn't be in there unless it was required.
Well, I didn't know if they put it in there, say, for future building, which was proposed at that time. They were
Yeah.
gonna build.
Now, not to the best of my knowledge. I'm all the docks that we work at around this area, they're all put in
Okay.
because of the occupancy. It's a required.
Okay, I didn't know if it was for future building. or
No,
what.
no.
I understand.
So you will work us up an estimate for labor?
Yes, we're working on a price up for Jason now for galvanized piping
Okay,
and also one for stainless piping. The labor's the same.
okay.
It doesn't take any more effort to put one up or the other. It's just one is more expensive.
Okay.
And there are ways that you guys can save money with that too. I mean, we can tear it out, and you guys can have dock hands pack it out. I mean, there's ways to work with Jason to adjust some costs to save money. Because you got to basically tear it all out and you put everything new back in. So you have all that product to move down there and plus move up. So if we had people with the dock that could pack it down and pack the old stuff out, because they're good at what they do, but it's probably a cheaper labor factor
Right.
than a sprinkler fitter and a technician like that.
Is there any other alternative other than black plastic?
Pardon me?
Is there a cheaper alternative other than black plastic pipe?
Well, you can't put plastic in.
Oh, okay.
Okay, PVCs?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay. Well, then that answers that.
Yeah, it wouldn't work. Just wouldn't work. It's not recommended for that application. It's not recommended to be outside.
Okay. Do we have PVC under Mo's now?
No, none of it's plastic. It's all under Mo's and IC. What's the name of that one?
ICM.
Yeah, ICM. And then the rest of the dock there. That's all Schedule 40 galvanized.
Okay.
Okay.
And it like I say, it's 87, so it's 30 years old. Right at it, and that's about the life expectancy.
But there's no warranty left?
And then the other thing that I mentioned to Jason is the equipment in the valve houses are also 30 years old. So that's something else that could get added on very easily to make it a project that you don't have to worry about, is putting a new valve in, which is, the cost of that is hardly anything compared to the overall scheme of what the project would cost.
Jason mentioned something about FEMA.
Yeah, we're gonna try to shoot for a grant with FEMA to do the whole entire replacement of both systems. Because they are accepting grants for fire protection for marina situations. So we're in the process of working with that, along with the fire department. Possibly even make a system go into the marina so we can actually fight fire in the marina. So it would be pretty cool if we were able to do this, to be able to.
But this doesn't extend down into the docks.
No, not at
So
this
that's what you're
time.
talking about.
But if it does, we would actually, we would expand our system. And then I did bring in a small section of, this was our last repair, underneath the wharf, and you can kind of see of what, the shape that the pipe's in. But that's what we're shooting for. If not, we try to do like a 3 or a 4 year phase with each budget cycle and try to start moving into this project to start the project, if we don't receive the FEMA application for the grant.
Okay, I think at this time, I think that you need to work with staff and give us a price and
Yes.
and we'll go from there.
Yes, okay.
So we'll leave it up to staff to negotiate with you.
Okay, very good.
Okay, commissioners, one thing I didn't mention before is we're missing Commissioner Huntington. Let the record show that he is absent at tonight's meeting. Approval of the minutes. Got time to everybody to read the minutes, I presume. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I
Do
thought
we
it was
need
by
to do-
consent.
Huh?
It's by consent.
It is, okay, it's all approved by consent, okay? No one is, okay, next, financial statements. Do we have any issues or questions on the financial statements?
I could go over a couple of things for you.
Okay,
As you see, for the month of March, bills paid were $93,529.93. Do you have any questions on the check detail report?
Oh, I would like to comment, I see a Belgian Marine, how long has the toilet's been out there?
The Billeter Marine,
Yeah, I didn't know the.
oh, the
toilet-
floating restroom?
Yeah,
It just arrived yesterday.
Yesterday
Yeah.
afternoon.
when's it scheduled to go in the water?
July,
Wow,
not till fishing season starts.
it's kinda hard to use it where it's at.
So if you have no questions on the check detail, we can forward on to the balance sheet. This month, for last month, ending March 31st, similar situation to what I reported last month. The assets are at 541,000, and 1 year ago at this time, they were at 439,000. So we have an increase of just a little over 100,000 in assets this year.
I mean, current assets.
Current assets, thank you. Any questions on the balance sheet? Okay, the next report is the profit and loss previous year comparison. You can see that on the column 3, this is comparing the difference between this fiscal year to last fiscal year. We have an increase of $16,000 in income and a decrease of expenses at about $10,000. The big one right there is, you can see in personal services a difference of $21,000, and that's attributed to, we had some staffing changes last fall, and we had a couple of resignations, and we did not rehire those positions until the spring. There was also a change in the health insurance. When we were budgeting this fiscal year for the health insurance benefits, we didn't have the final numbers in, so we budgeted high, and they came in a little lower. So that's the reason we have a change there.
So without the $32,000 grant, which I don't recall what those are, we'd be $16,000 less. I see that we're $44,000 less in levied taxes than we were last year. Can you give us some direction?
Each year is different with the taxes. Each year they don't come in exactly the same each month. So we may get a little bit more before the end of the fiscal year than we did last year.
They allocate to all districts about the same percentage-wise, though, so I'm confused about that. So you're suggesting that we're going to get the 300,000? You think before the end of the year
that's
we'll
what
get it?
That's what we predicted going into the budget. But what actually happens, what money we get from the property taxes, I've seen differences in previous years to where we haven't gotten as much as we predicted, and some years we've gotten more.
That's too much. I'd like you to look into that.
Okay, I will.
That's too much of a disparity from one year to the next.
All right. Any other questions on that one? So on the profit and loss budget performance for last month, the first 2 pages are the income detail. And we are showing some, in the third column, that's the variance. So that's comparing your second column, which is the year-to-date figures, to the annual budget. And we're starting to see some negative numbers, which actually is a good thing. That shows, if you look at that carefully, that shows that we have exceeded the budgeted amounts for this year. As we move into pages 3 to 5, we're into the expenses. Negative numbers mean one of two things. Either the item was not budgeted for, or it's over budget, and we're watching those very carefully.
So explain that to me. If I go to services lead, I'm seeing
Okay.
a variance of minus 13,000.
Right, because in the fourth column to the right, you see 0 was budgeted there. Going into this fiscal year, we did not have the position of services lead. This was actually Kelly Stewart's position. She was the office assistant. She got her responsibilities changed into a different capacity, to where instead of being more office assistant work with bookkeeping, she took over some more responsibilities overseeing the campground, the reservations, the mortgage contracts. So you will see that the line item for office assistant has decreased and the services lead has increased. So it's the same person working 2 different positions during the fiscal year. So that's an example of a line item not being budgeted for. If you go down towards the bottom of the page under operation supplies, which is 5360, there's a subcategory of 5361, safety supplies. For the year, we budgeted $2,100. We've already spent $2,300, so we have exceeded budget by a little over $200 there. Anything else on this report? That brings us to the last report, which is the occupancy report. The campground year-to-date average of 46% is down from last year's 50% at this time. But we're really not that far off the overall mark, because as you can see, we ended last year at 47%, and we still have 3 months to go, and hopefully with good weather we will increase occupancy, and our goal is to beat that end of year 47%.
The campground spaces that we can't use will make a little bit of difference in this too, won't it?
It will make a little bit of a difference, but the only time that we really fill the campground between now and June 30th is roadie days. So that's only one
Oh,
weekend.
that's right, just for this fiscal year.
Right.
That's a self-imposed closure we put on that back area. I mean, couldn't we open it up for roadie days?
Well, there's two things about that. That may become part of our, the revenue that we lose from that will get attributed to the FEMA grant as part of our in-kind contribution. So we will pick that money up again in another way. And we think that there's safety issues and would rather not open it up. We've been talking about different ways to move people around so we don't have them against the back ledge where all the erosion is. So it's just, that's what we thought was in the best, even though we're losing a little revenue from it for roadie days, that was our determination in terms of a safety issue.
The mortgage occupancy numbers are a little higher than last year, so that's good. 49% as opposed to 45%.
Sounds good.
All right.
Any other questions? Okay, we will move forward. Okay, resolution 4-20-16A, appropriation transfer.
So this is the resolution I spoke of last month, that we would be transferring money out of contingency into these categories. So as you can see on the resolution, we've got $40,000 coming out of contingency, and it's split up over those 5 projects. The $7,200 for Jack Aiken, the engineering and erosion and survey for the erosion project. $9,000 that would be paying for the earnest money, the legal fees, the appraisal, and the environmental testing for the Wilbur property. And $6,000 for remodeling the public restroom. And then in capital outlay, adding $3,800 for security cameras and the upgrade of the Noble parking lot lights of $14,000.
Any questions?
So that covers those costs specifically?
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Section 8.
yeah, I know I saw that. I was looking, I thought I saw a larger number than that for one of them in here.
The Wilbur
did too.
property did cost,
11,000?
yeah, the Wilbur property did cost more, but we are getting a grant from Business Oregon to reimburse us for the Phase 1 environmental assessment, and that was in the amount of $2,400.
Okay. Nopal lights, that's just gonna be done here in the next month?
We've got the bids out. I'm not sure if we actually hired someone. We've got the bids in, ready to go.
Okay, so that'll be done prior to the end of this fiscal year.
Yeah.
The restroom remodel, the same thing. You're gonna start on it ASAP.
It's we paid a deposit on supplies for that. That's ready to go. That will be done by the end of the year for sure, certainly.
Can we expect to make it through June now without another contingency transfer, do you think? I mean, is there anything else on the horizon out there that we're not
No.
aware of?
Not that we're not aware of either.
Okay.
What, Mike,
Huh.
gonna ask, what about the parking lot restriping?
Those will go into next year's budget.
Okay, and then I was under the understanding we authorized $5,000 to Jack Aiken. So is this in addition to that?
No, this is moving the money out of one account into the other account. You did authorize it.
5,000.
5,000, right,
And then the difference was the survey cost.
right.
The survey costs that we're gonna incur, or that we already did?
We've already have incurred and have already paid.
blueprints he had, the pictures. Any other questions? Someone want to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Here a second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion to approve the resolution 4-20-16A. It's been, the motion was from Michael and seconded by Nancy. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed. Next item. David Leskin will talk to us about Resolution 4-20-16B, surplus property.
Yeah, the port has a fair amount of surplus equipment, well, it's mostly all equipment in the warehouse. We can work with a company that will put it online for us and sell it. It'll be sold on a website called publicservice.com. The cost is 4%, comes out of the sales price, and somebody will come pick it up, photograph it, pick it up, and move it. And these are all items that I've gone over with Jason, and just apparently are not in use, and are just taking up space in the warehouse. So we're proposing generating a little bit of income on this.
I had a question, maybe Jason help, the large marine electrical pedestals, are those new or used, or?
That one particularly is brand new. It was purchased.
I see, it's item number 12, you don't have 12 of them.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's just there's one particular one that's larger and completely different than anything we're using in our marina. It came from the Port of Newport.
But it's new.
But it's brand new.
Well, it makes it easier knowing there's only one. I thought there was 12 of them. I thought, wait a minute, maybe we ought to be keeping these.
Someone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll move to make that motion.
Second it.
Okay. It has, motion has been made and approved and seconded for Port of Siuslaw Resolution 4-20-16B, a resolution to declare surplus property. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's see, next is to appoint budget committee members. We had a discussion on it, we have 2 applicants, and looks like that is up to us to do. And our 2 applicants one was Dee Osborne, who is with Banner Bank, and the other person is Joel Marks, who is lives in, looks like Mariners Village, and the board discussed their qualifications before the meeting in an executive session, and I believe that with this time we'd like to approve both nominees to serve on the budget board.
I'll make that motion that we approve the 2 nominees, or the 2 people who applied for budget positions.
Okay, I hear a second. Whose turn is it?
I'll second.
Okay. Mike Buckwell will second that. And any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Commission reports. I don't think I have anything to report. I went to the opening where they gave out all the sea lions. And I went to the Urban Renewal Board, I'm on that, and paying a very close attention to all the plans that are being made for our city, which are wonderful. If we just had a little bit bigger checkbook, we'd be able to do a lot of those things. But at least we have a city that is in motion, trying to do better things for us. I think that's all I have. Nancy?
I've been attending city council meetings, and the 30th of March was the watershed meeting, and it was 2 experts on fish and the effects of the heat in the ocean. The salmon are moving north, and on the 11th of April, I came down to the port, and there was a program for the kids to do some Scotch broom cleanup. And it was really fun to watch them. They were out there learning about the estuary and all of the things that they did. The 13th, I attended the Lane Act in Springfield. The city presented an ask for a second phase in the estuary trail. And 18th were economic development meeting and city council meeting. And just as a heads up, next week's watershed meeting is about beavers.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Michael?
No, nothing.
Nothing. Terry? Okay. Does the port manager have a report?
No, I don't have anything new to, I don't have anything other than what we've gone over today. I do include port news from around Oregon, and I think there's some copies up there. I included a couple of different things. I found a long article on the container shutdown in Portland. And this article, if you're interested, goes through both sides of the arguments, from the labor and from the management side. And up here, we're kind of insulated from the direct effects of that, but it's been a disaster in Portland. It's been, you have a lot of shippers now who are having to go through Tacoma and points further north and putting their goods on rail, making them more expensive. And it doesn't look like there's any negotiations ongoing at the present time between ILWU and ICSTI to get this resolved, and that's the company that actually runs Terminal 6 at the Port of Portland. The other thing I included was Kevin Mannix, a longtime politician in the state, will be promoting what he calls Shipping Authority Act, something along with what he said. I heard him speak last week, along the lines of the health authority in Oregon, the Health Authority Corporation. So I've just included, if you're interested, where he sees his Shipping Development Act going, and he's going to go through the legislature to get that entity created. I don't know that his proposal will address the labor dispute. When we met with him, I met with him with the other port managers, and the question everybody put to him is, what are you going to do that the port can't do? And there wasn't really an answer to that. So it remains to be seen where that will go. And the last item that I included was just an article out of the Statesman Journal discussing the PERS deficit. It's not really directed to our port or ports in general, but it's just an overview of the condition that PERS is in now with recent adverse ruling from the state Supreme Court over a deal that was worked out in John Kitzhaber's term. So that's what I got. Thanks.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to adjourn our meeting at 8:04. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We're done.